Hey, what's going on, everybody? Manny here once again. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NBA and the NFL. Got a brand new video for you, ladies and gentlemen. Before I get started, like always, I appreciate you guys drop a like. And if you're new to the channel, first time here, you have not, as of yet, subscribed to the DFS Zone community. The only thing you have to do is click on that red subscribe button down below and make sure on the right-hand side of that little bell, click on that bell icon, turn that on, so this way you don't miss out on any of my NBA or NFL lineup advice videos. With that being said, today is Wednesday. It's December the 5th, 2018. 10-game slate in the association, a nice big slate. Let's get right into it. At point guard today, definitely will have exposure to Russell Westbrook because I think that price tag is a little low. You need 55 from him, so I will have some exposure to him. I'll get back to him because I'm going to try to give you guys a couple options. He is definitely someone I'm going to have exposure to. I'm not going to make him the key player here that I think you guys should be on. I'm going to come down. John Wall, just prior to me doing the video about a half hour, 45 minutes ago, while I was doing a little bit of research, I got a notification that John Wall is out today, personal reasons. I don't know what it is. The good thing is it's not an illness. It may be just a rest day, but John Wall is out, so definitely there's going to be a bump there on Bradley Beal, Mr. Porter, Mr. Markieff Morris. I already was going to mention a little bit of Beal because I definitely have a plan to have a lot of exposure to Beal, so now it's even more. I'm more intrigued by it, but John Wall is out. So we're going to come down, and I'm going to go with Eric Bledsoe. I only mentioned him once earlier this year. This is the second time. Eric Bledsoe at 7,200 really definitely appeals to me because he's played well against his team, most importantly, and he has good upside. 16 points, pretty much 15.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 6 assists. Fantasy points at 33.5, pretty much 34 fantasy points per game, 7,200. You need about 36 from him here on Fanduel. On DK, he's 6,900, so you need about 34 there, and that's pretty much what he's averaging, so that is a pretty good price tag. He has 50-point upside, as we all know. We come over to the cruncher, and let's take a look at him a little bit further, Mr. Bledsoe. And as you can see here, he is bookend here with 43 and 47. He had 2 dud games here, 24 and 26 against Charlotte and Chicago. Did the same thing here, but he's been 34 or better pretty much over the last 7, 8, 9, maybe over the last 10, 11 games. But 41, 47, 43, and 47, the last 4 good games that he's played, he's put up 41 plus. And I mean, overall, minutes are there, 29 to 30 pretty much on average. He's averaging about 21, 22% usage rate when he's on the floor, and then of course he's getting more than enough shots. He's getting maybe about 11 or 12 a game, and as of late he's been taking a few more, 13 and 15 here, 18 here in the last game, taking about maybe 5 to 6 threes on average over the last 6 or 7 games that he has played. So he's definitely taking a little bit more shots there. He's capable free throw shooter. He shoots fairly well from the line, and he brings a little bit of rebounding, and he brings definitely the assists. And what he's been doing as of late, he's definitely defending very well. He's been a good defender with steals over the course of the season. 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3. I mean, in the last 5 games, he has 8 steals and 2 blocks. So he's doing fairly well. When he's not shooting well enough, he's actually doing some of the other things that make him appealing. What makes me more appealing out of this matchup, for one, Detroit is 26 defending point guards, but at the same time, he has had pretty good success against Detroit. 41, 47, 36, and 34 over the course of the last 4 games. Back in 15-16, he put 37 and 32 while he was with the Phoenix Suns. So he has played fairly well against these guys. You know, he's been consistent enough. 35 plus in those games against these guys, over 1 fantasy point per minute. You know how much we love that here on DFS Zone. His home and away splits, 54% shooting, 34% from 3, 71% from the free throw line. He's averaging 35 fantasy points per game, and at home, while his average is 34, so he's averaging a little bit better at home than he has been for the entire season, and he's averaging 35 or better against his team over the course of over the course of the last 5 or 6 games. So I mean, he's doing everything well, and we know, most importantly, he has 50-point upside. He's capable of putting up 50 points or better. So versus Detroit, they're 26 in defending point guards, coming in here 12th in fantasy points allowed to point guards. They've been allowing 29.9 nearly 30 fantasy points. I round that off to 30 fantasy points per game over the last 6 games. They did give up 35 to Westbrook. Not a big number because that was a blowout. Westbrook didn't have to put up large numbers in that one. 45 to Booker, 37 to Curry, 37 to Chris Paul. to just name a few guys there. So Eric Bledsoe definitely in a good position here, man. I really think he's a fine player, 7,200 and 6,900 on DK. I think he could, for me, I believe he really has an opportunity here to exceed value. For us here, we need about 42, 43 from him for him to really feel good about that play. But if he gets 47, 10 more fantasy points, he'll be a great, solid GPP play. I think he's okay to play as a cash play today for you guys in this matchup. Then I come back again to Russell Westbrook. I like Russell here. 11K. He's 11,002 on DK. So you need 56. You need about 56 there, 55 here. Very much attainable, man. Brooklyn is 22nd in defending point guards, as you can see here. 22nd in defending point guards, and they've been allowing 30 fantasy points per game over the last 6 games. They gave up 50 to Wall, 58 to Connolly, and 44.5 to Simmons in the course of those 6 games. So Russell Westbrook definitely should be able to do well here. And on top of that, we know we don't need to go over his usage rate and all that. We know where he stands, and he's actually has played fairly well against his team over the last 6 games over the course of 3 years. 60, 49, 61, 68, 52, 46. Usage rate is there. You definitely know it's about 1.1 fantasy points per minute or more versus Brooklyn. So I definitely like the matchup for Russell Westbrook. He is someone that I'm going to have some exposure to. All right. If you wanted to pay down, I think Jeff Teague is not a bad play against Charlotte. Charlotte is 18th in defending point guards. He has played well against Charlotte 3 out of his last 4 games against them. As we go here, have been pretty solid. 30, 30, 36, 44, and 39 last year. So very solid last year. 33 minutes, more than 1 fantasy point per minute there as well. Definitely someone to consider. You need 34 here on DK. He's 6K. You need 30. And I also like today as a mid-tier play as well. Lonzo Ball played well against San Antonio last year as well. At 6,600, a little pricey here. I love his price. Definitely circle his price in for DK. 5,200 on DK. You only need 26 for him there. Here at 6,006, I probably won't have too much exposure to him here. But I have him on my list as someone that I like because I do like him for DK. So for you DK players, he's definitely someone you should consider there. He's had success last year, as you can see, 49 and 46 in those 2 games against the San Antonio Spurs. So and the Spurs come in here 24th in defending point guard. So I like the matchup there. So that's a couple of guys there that you can consider as shooting guard. I definitely like DeMar DeRozan here. Before I decided to do the video, and then of course, like I said, 45 minutes ago, I got a notification that John Wall is going to be out. So I'm loving even more so Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal in play for me as well. DeMar DeRozan, I like both of those guys. I probably will have half and half in my lineups today. And if I can get them both in a lineup, I may just do that as well. But Bradley Beal, 8,500, 8,400 on DK. He's averaging 38 fantasy points per game. Coming in here, 22 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 37.8, nearly 38 fantasy points per game. At 8,005, you need 42. On DK's 8,400, you need about the same. Okay, we go over to the cruncher, and we'll take a look at Mr. Beal a little bit further. And he's going, as you can see, going up against Atlanta. They're 26. A little choppy, same thing here, like Bledsoe. A little couple games here where he didn't play as well. But again, no big deal. This was a blowout game. And, of course, when he shoots well, his usage rate is going to be even higher. Today, due to John Wall being out, there is no doubt Bradley Beal is going to be the main guy here. The only thing also is about this is they more than likely, 10-game slate, I don't expect them to be like 50, 60% owned. I'll be shocked. But he'd probably be in the high 30s because I'm sure a lot of DFS players not only watching my video or anywhere else, they're gonna probably mention Bradley Beal as a possible play here, especially with John Wall out. So he might be a little bit more highly sought out. This is why I kind of want to be able to throw at you DeRozan as well, because I think DeRozan is in play as well. So again, Bradley Beal, numbers, man. Like I said, 35 plus minutes per game on average. His usage rate is about 26, 27% on average. But again, he has been averaging 31 here, 35 here. So when he's shooting well, he usually gets a little bit more. 17 to 18 shots per game. He's putting up about 4 or 5 threes on average per game. Pretty good free throw shooter as well. And he can get you rebounds and assists. And he brings a bit of defense. He's a better defender than John Wall. 2 blocks over the last 2 games. And then we're going all the way back 2 here. 1, 2, 3. I mean, he's had 5, 6, 7, 8 blocks over the course of 6 games and about 7 or 8 steals. So he has been really, really playing well in a lot of areas. So I think he's a great play. 39 plus over the last 7 to 8, 9 games against Atlanta. If you look at this is what I was seeing when I was looking at the stats. He has done very, very well versus Atlanta. Over 1.1 fantasy points per minute. If you tally this up with his production as well as his minutes, he's at about 1.1 plus fantasy points per minute. So he's been really, really solid, over 40 somewhat fantasy points per game, pretty much about 43, 44 fantasy points per game over that stretch. So he has done well. Definitely like Bradley Beal there. Other than that, you could go with Mr. DeMar DeRozan. It's going up. Well, first things first, Bradley Beal is going up against, Atlanta. They're 26 in defending shooting guards. DeMar DeRozan was my first key guy that I was going to discuss with you guys before I heard the news of Beal. So I definitely have DeMar DeRozan. I think he's a fine play today again, going against the Lakers, because he already has had great success against them just this year alone. He's coming in 24 points per game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 41 fantasy points per game, 8,400. You need 42. He's 8,900 on DK. So maybe on DK, if you wanted to pay down, then go after Beal, who is 8,400. You'll save $500. But again, I think he is that good of a play today against the Lakers. Even though the Lakers are playing a lot better defense now than they were when he put up those 60 somewhat points on them. But nonetheless, I do like DeRozan here, that he's going to need to be big time for San Antonio today against the Lakers. We come over to the cruncher on DeRozan, and as you see, pretty choppy with these numbers. They don't look really pretty. This chart doesn't look good when you see a lot of red. But the 2 games that he did play well, 52 and 56, so we know he has 50-point upside. Okay. Minutes have been good, pretty much 35 to 36 minutes per game on average, maybe sometimes even more when he's shooting better, or when he really needs his higher usage rate. He's going to get more minutes, as you can see here. Usage rate has been really crazy as well, pretty much 29 to as much as 30%. And then the shots, I would say about 18, 19 shots per game on average from the floor, give or take. And then, of course, he gets to the free throw line. He's a good free throw shooter with no concerns there, so he needs to be a little aggressive there. Rebounding, he could get his share of reboundings. He definitely gets a couple assists as well. And he brings to the table the defense. We know we're going to get some blocks from him. We know we're going to get some steals on occasion. So he brings a little bit of everything. DeMar DeRozan, solid here. What I like best about the whole matchup is obviously he already has played against LA earlier this year already, and he has already put up a 61 and 63 spot in those 2 games, playing nearly 42 minutes on average, and put up 30% usage rate with over 23 shots per game. So that's a lot of shooting. He's going to need to do that again today, folks. Last year he did play another one solid game as well, 42 spot. So he's done well against these guys. His home and away splits is pretty balanced, both on the road and at home. 48% field goal percentage, 87% from the free throw line. Averaging 23 points per game, 41.6 fantasy points per game. And then, of course, versus LA in these 2 games, I broke that down. 48% field goal percentage, 40% from 3, 98% from the free throw line. He had 10 rebounds and 11 assists and 31 points per game in those matchups with 64 fantasy points. Where in this case, 62 fantasy points, pretty much. 62 fantasy points per game on average. So, very solid play. I think DeMar DeRozan is in play here going against the Lakers. The Lakers are 30th in defending shooting guards, 17th in fantasy points per game allowed. They have improved there slightly over the course of the last 6-7 games. They were once in the 20s, but they're allowing still 26.4 fantasy points per game. They only put up, there's only one player that's put up big numbers against the LA Lakers, and he's probably the only top tier that has faced them, and that's DeMar DeRozan. That's pretty much it. He's the only guy. Other than that, they faced McCollum has played them twice, put up 39 and 34. Jimmy Butler put up 49 before going to the Sixers. Bazemore of Atlanta put up 46, and Okogie of the Phoenix Suns put up 38. Okogie from the Minnesota Timberwolves, put up 38. All right, so that's where we stand there. So I like those 2 guys the best. Other than that, man, a couple of guys. I'd be honest with you. I think that Jimmy Butler is someone to consider here as well. 7,900. I think Embiid is in a tougher matchup. I think that Butler could be a very sneaky play here at 7,900. So he might have some. You should want to have some exposure to him. Take a look at him. I definitely think Dennis Schroeder is in a good spot too. He's been playing fairly well. 5,900. His price has come down, but he's had 2 solid 30 and 35-point games here. And he has played well against Brooklyn as well. 54 last year, 30, 38, 37. And look at the year prior to that. 35, 40, 42, and 39. And Brooklyn is pretty much the same team over the course of the last 2 years, at least in the backcourt. So I can see myself having a little exposure to Dennis Schroeder as well. All right. Let's go to small forward. At small forward, there's 2 guys in play for me. All right. Granted, I will have a little exposure to LeBron James because LeBron James' price is too cheap. You gotta have to have a little bit of LeBron James. So LeBron James for me is in play. To be honest with you, out of the top tier guys, I'm not on Giannis. I'm not on Durant. I think this game's gonna be a blowout. But LeBron James, a little more competitive game. I think he's a good solid play. So definitely have some exposure to him. This Markieff thing is very important too. If this illness comes about, I definitely like Julius Randle for them, and I also would like a little bit of Doncic for Dallas in this matchup if Markieff is out. So I may have some exposure to Doncic if Markieff is down. If he is out, definitely they're going to probably pencil in Julius Randle, who just went nuts the last time he played for Markieff when he was out. So if Markieff is out again, definitely Randle will be in play. And if he is out also in that same matchup, I kind of like also Luka Doncic. But we're going to come down here. This mid-tier area here, I really love these guys in this mid-tier area. But again, sorry, LeBron James, man. Let's just stay with LeBron James. 10,700. LeBron James is in play for me. I think I really like him the most. 28 points, 7.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, pretty much 7 assists a game. Fantasy points, 50 fantasy points per game at 10,007. You need pretty much 52, 53 from him. On DK's 10,500. You need pretty much the same 52, 53. He's averaging 50. We come over to the cruncher at small forward. And Mr. LeBron James. And again, LeBron's numbers haven't been pretty. 161 spot here, 39, 39, 33, 36. But one thing is for certain, you're going to still get usage. His usage rate is 31, 32%. The minutes are going to be over 30 minutes per game. He's going to get 20, maybe 20, 19, 20 shots per game, and he's going to take 4 or 5 threes per game on average. He gets to the free throw lines. Free throw shooting has been pretty subpar this year. All right, but he's getting to the line. We know he's going to get to the line. He brings rebounds, he brings assists, and he's capable of getting steals and blocks. This is the big killer for LeBron. He does a tons of turnovers. If he doesn't get these steals and blocks here, he hurts us when he has these turnovers. So we need him to get more steals and blocks, which he's capable of doing, and he definitely has to neutralize and cut back on these turnovers. But I still like him here due to the fact that he's going up against the Spurs, and he's already played well against the Spurs. 56 and 63 this year alone. Last year in 2 games, 59 and 47. So he's been averaging more than 56 fantasy points per game in the last 3 games. And we only need him to get in here with 52, 53 fantasy points. So I think he's good to go. And I think also he has great upside. We know that. He's capable of getting 60. He can get you 70 any given night. He can get you even 80. So if this game ends up being some sort of a shootout, you could expect LeBron James to really get into this game and take a lot of shots. So I like LeBron James here. I think he's a great play. Going up against San Antonio, they're 28th in defending. Well, first things first. Home and away splits, I don't need to discuss it much, but I like to always share this stuff with you guys. He's 53% field goal percentage from the floor, 36% from 3, 27 points per game on average at home in LA, 52 fantasy points per game, which is above his average. So, yeah, I mean, it looks good more and more appealing. And then, of course, he shot 52% in those 2 games against San Antonio, 29% from 3, 33 points per game in those games, and 63 fantasy points. Versus San Antonio, 28th in defending small forwards, 26th in fantasy points per game allowed to small forwards. They've been allowing quite a bit. In the last 6 games, they have been allowing 32.7 fantasy points per game. They did give up in the last outing to Joe Ingles 34. Harkless put up 30. P.J. Tucker put up 26. Then you got Covington with 42 and Justin Holiday with 35. Again, they have not faced anybody really, truly good other than LeBron James. And LeBron James is going to get a chance to see them again for the 3rd time. So I like the matchup. I think LeBron James is going to be just fine here. Other than that, if you're not on LeBron James which is okay to pay down. I think it's a great matchup for him. You can come down, and I was going to discuss Mr. Robert Covington. I like Covington here at 7,000 because he's getting tons of usage. He's getting tons of minutes, most importantly. Robert Covington coming in almost 13 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 1 assist. He's not going to pass the ball a lot. He get rebounds. He's a three-point shooter, perimeter shooter, and he can get you some points. 30.9 fantasy points per game, pretty much 31 fantasy points per game. He has 7,000 here on Fanduel. You need 35. And on DK, he's 6,600. You need 33. I think he's viable in both sites. His average at 31. He's coming in. We're going to take a look at him here a little bit further. Mr. Covington. Right here. Okay, Robert Covington. Pretty solid, man. As you can see here, he has been okay. The last 4 games, he's been just slightly above value, getting what he needs to get. His price tag has come down, 73 and 73. He's down to 7,000 today. So we're going to get a $300 discount with a chance for him to get 40 or better. He's getting the minutes. Minutes are there, man. 35, maybe 34, 35 minutes per game. Since he's been with the Timberwolves, they've been using him a lot. Usage rate, not extremely high. When he's not shooting well, it's obvious. You can see that here. 39 minutes here, 4 of 7, 2 of 4. All right, didn't take a whole lot of shots here. Did some other things, got the 2 blocks, got the 2 steals. That's why he got 33 fantasy points. Look at this game here, 18% usage rate, 4 of 11, 2 of 7. He shot poorly, but he got rebounds. He got you some steals. He still put up 39 fantasy points, but this is why his usage rate is only 18 because he didn't shoot as well. All right, 21% usage rate here in 31 minutes. Put up the same amount of, but look at the shots. 4 of 9 here, slightly over 40% shooting over here, slightly over 50% shooting. Got the floor points, was able to get the rebounds, but again, in this game, he didn't have the blocks and steals. So he would have had more if he would have gotten more blocks and steals. So it comes to show you when he's not shooting well, his usage rate is more lower, but it's quite all right. Usage rate pretty much about 16, 17% over the last couple of games, 18, as high as 21%. The shots are there. He's getting, I don't know, you figure 10 to 11 shots per game on average, maybe 11 more so if you break this down, and he's getting about 5 or 6 threes per game. Gets to the foul line, so he's been able to do a little bit of everything. Rebounding is there. He's not going to pass the ball a whole lot, that's for sure. Surprisingly, the turnovers over the last 2 games is a surprise. 3 and 2, 5 turnovers in the last 2 games. Definitely got to clean that up. But he's got 6, 7, 8, 9. He'll get at least 2 steals a game on average, and he'll get at least a block here and there. So he's a solid defender. No doubt about it. His home and away splits, 41% field goal percentage, 38% from 3. He's shooting 80% from the free throw line, averaging 32 fantasy points per game. Versus Charlotte in 2 games this year, he already's played them twice, 24 and 47 spot. All right. In those 2 games, he averaged 33 minutes, 42% shooting, 36% from 3, 4 blocks, and 33 fantasy points per game. Overall, in the last 5 games against these guys, you can see here, he's been pretty solid, 38.8 fantasy, so 39 fantasy points per game, which is just right above where he needs to be. We know he's got 45, maybe 50-point upside. Mr. Covington, definitely a nice play, solid play. Definitely could be a nice, solid cash play for you guys today with the upside to get you that GPP money as well. Versus Charlotte, 25th in defending small forwards, 14th in fantasy points per game allowed, allowing 24.5 fantasy points per game. They have only had one top-tier guy has put up big numbers, and it's the only one guy they have really faced, and that's Paul George. It's 42. Jason Tatum put up 34. Covington in 2 games, 24 and 47 respectively. They have faced other guys like Taurean Prince twice, Glenn Robinson, Bogdanovich, J.R. Smith, Wesley Johnson. They really, as you can see, not a whole lot of top-tier small forwards. I definitely like the position Robert Covington is at today. So Robert Covington is in play for me as far as LeBron James. I think those are the 2 top guys you can definitely consider there, at least for today for me. Power forward, you can't pay up for Anthony Davis. I think it's just a lot of money, man. Anthony Davis, you need about 64, 65 fantasy points to meet this 12,800 price tag, and he's 11,005 on DK, so it's quite a bit. You need 57, very much more doable on DK with that 57 spot, so maybe I'll sprinkle him in a few lineups on DK. I don't know if I'm going to get him in here on Fanduel. On Fanduel, I'm not too thrilled about any of these guys up top. Milwaukee's going to be a tough go for Blake Griffin due to Giannis maybe putting a little bit of defense on him, but we're going to come down here at I kind of like, when I look at the slate here at the power forward, I kind of like these mid price, guys, he has 7K or lower. Now, Aaron Gordon was my best play last night that I gave you guys, but he's on the front end of a back-to-back. And he's going up against Denver. And I told you guys already a couple of videos back that I am not touching anybody against Denver right now because they've been really just been so tough against opposition. But we're going to come down here. Kyle Kuzma, Paul Millsap, Pascal Siakam, and Markieff Morris all appeal to me more. I like pairing these guys up. I think I'm going to do a lot with these guys in play today. But my favorite three are Siakam, Morris, and Kyle Kuzma. Kuzma will be the first one I'll discuss real quickly. Kyle Kuzma coming in here, 16.5 points per game, 5 rebounds, 1.5, nearly 2 assists a game, averaging 27.7 fantasy points per game. So you round that off to about 28 fantasy points per game. At 7,000, you need 35. So his price is a little bit up, but he has been trending a little bit upward over the last few games. And he has 6,600 on DK. You pretty much need 33 there. Over the last 2 games, as you can see there, he's averaging more than 28 minutes per game, and he's averaging 36 plus in fantasy points. So he is trending a bit slightly upward. We come over to the cruncher, and we'll take a look at him a little closer here. Kyle Kuzma. And Mr. Kuzma, as you can see, 42, 36, 30, 35. So he has, and over the last 4 or 5 games, you can see from the previous 5 games, he has been slightly trending upward in the right direction. We know that he's an integral part of this team. He is going to get minutes and he's going to get time. He's a starter. Everything is there. His minutes are there. 30, I would say 30 to 31 minutes per game. Usage rate about 22% on average. And then, of course, he's getting about 13 or 14 shots per game on average. And he's getting some threes as well. I would say maybe 4 or 5. I would say closer to 5 threes on average per game. Gets to the free throw line. He's not a bad free throw shooter. And, of course, he brings some rebounding. He brings some assists. And he can defend a little bit. I'm surprised he doesn't get more steals and blocks as athletic as he is. So 1 steal, 1 block in the last game, but double-digit scoring over the course of 5-6 straight games, which is nice to see. Versus San Antonio this year, he already played versus San Antonio already this year. He did put up 21 in the last outing, 49. And then I also like the fact that he was at 26 plus in 3 games last year. Granted, his price tag is a little bit higher than last year, but nonetheless, he has been doing very well against his team. In the 2 games this year against these guys, 54% field goal percentage, 39% from 3, 26 points per game, and he's averaging 38 fantasy points. Versus San Antonio, they're 28th in defending power forwards, 21st in fantasy points per game allowed. 2 power forwards allowing 34 fantasy points per game over the course of the last 6 games. And they've been trending upward. They have actually been giving up more than 9 fantasy points more over the course of the last 6 games. They did allow 25 to Favors, 36 to Aminu, 25 to Gibson, 38 to Mr. Parker, and 73 to Giannis. So, again, Giannis the big one there. But nonetheless, in position for Kyle Kuzma to do fairly well here. So I like Kyle Kuzma here if you want to pay down from paying up on some of these higher tier guys. I also like Pascal Siakam here as well. Siakam 6,700, 15 points, 6.4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 30 fantasy points per game. I like the factors that 3 out of his last 5 games, he's been pretty much at 30 or more fantasy points per game. We come over here and take a quick look at him real quickly here, Pascal. And, you know, hey, his price tag, slightly a little lower than what he has been in the last few games. He was as high as 7,500. He was getting up there. We were worrying about that. All of a sudden now he has dipped down. He has had a couple little, games where he didn't perform as well. But this matchup here against Philly, man, I really like the whole idea of him going up against Philadelphia. Philly, and the more of the reasons why I like him here against Philly is this here. He's had great success against them. Like, granted, he was only 37 and 4,100 in these games last year, but early in the year, 4,400. Did put up a 42 spot, which would be still good enough for this $6,700 price tag. I think that now at this point in time, from October 30th to now, he has been more of an integral part of what they do up front, and I can see him definitely excelling here even more in this matchup here today. And then when you come in, he's been okay in everything else, man. As far as minutes, he's getting them, so we're not concerned. Minutes are there. His usage rate, he's not going to get a ton of usage. When he's shooting well enough, they give him more usage. It's like any other player. When you're not getting that much involved, or not getting that many opportunities. Your usage rate is going to be slightly dipped a little bit lower, but he's getting about maybe 9 or 10 opportunities per game shots. He's taking a few threes. I mean, he's not a big three-point shooter, but he gets a couple. He gets to the foul line. He's able to get a couple free throws there, so he's a pretty decent free throw shooter. He gets the rebounds, gets a few assists. What I like is that he definitely can bring you some extra fantasy points with steals and blocks. He had 2 steals in the last game. He's had 4 or 5, pretty much 5 blocks over the course of the last 5 games. And again, he has done well against his team. So I kind of like Pascal Siakam here a little bit. His home and away splits have been pretty good. Better shooter at home than he is on the road. But 68% field goal percentage, 52% from 3, 86% from the free throw line. He's averaging 14 points per game and 28 fantasy points per game. Versus Philly in that one game this year, he did play 33 minutes. He shot 75% from the floor, 75% from free throw line. 15 rebounds in that game, 3 steals, 42 fantasy points. As you can see here, okay, that was that matchup. He only was 4,400 back then, but again, he is at the price tag here where he should be able to still be able to cover that. So I think Pascal Siakam is someone that I like, and I definitely like Markieff Morris. Markieff Morris is going to get a bump today, 6,300 for him. He's 6,400 on DK. You only need 32 pretty much, and he's averaging 24, 25. So I think he is someone you must consider as well today. 6 out of his last 7 games, he's had 29 plus fantasy points, and he's actually been trending upward, as you can see that. And then without no John Wall today, you got to love him. We come over and look at him a little bit more. Markieff Morris. And, man, as of late, he has been really, really good. He is getting minutes. His minutes at about 25, 26% and trending a little bit upward. In some games where he's had more opportunities, he's actually played a few more minutes depending on how the game flow is going. This game was a high-scoring game, and it was close, so he got to stay there a little bit longer. He's been getting easily about maybe, 11, 12 shots a game, and more so, as you can see, he was only taking 5 or 6 shots a game just like 10 games ago. But the last 8 or 9 games, this has been trending upward. He is taking more shots from the floor, being a little more aggressive. He's actually a pretty decent free throw shooter for a 4 player. I mean, and on top of that, he rebounds. He's physical. He's able to get steals and blocks. He defends a little bit. So he brings a little bit to the table. Going up against Atlanta. Now, granted, going up against Atlanta, they're 30th in defending power forwards. They're allowing 27.6 fantasy points per game over the course of the last 6 games, 47 to Durant, 37 to Marvin Williams, 35 to Siakam, and 41 to Tobias Harris. So, again, I like Markieff Morris here. He's another guy. So I gave you 3 possible plays there. Take any one you like. I think those guys are all great plays. We go over to center. At center, I'm not on Joel Embiid. I think this is a little tough matchup for them with Siakam, with Ibaka, with Valanciunas, and so on. I think he could get you 50. I don't think he's just gonna smash. So I will be a little hesitant. But Marc Gasol, definitely I love here. I just don't love his price on Fanduel. So I'm gonna speak upon DK. Guys, he is a good play on DraftKings. He's on draft. As you can see, he's 10,200 here. His price on DraftKings is 8,600. You only need 44 from him, and he's averaging 42, 43. On DK, Fanduel here, this is pretty pricey. He's 10,002. You need 51 here to meet value. To be honest with you, I think he's in a good position to get 51. I will have some exposure to him here on Fanduel, but it's only right for me to tell my viewers that I think he is much better play, obviously, hands down, on DK with 8,600. You only need, like I said, 44 fantasy points there, and I think he could definitely smash that. So he'll be a good GPP play and cash play there, and I think over here is more like you're taking a stab at him as a GPP play. You can't take him as a cash play here, but at 10,200, pretty pricey. So Marc Gasol, like I said, I'm gonna mention 6 out of his last 8 games, 48 plus. Let's go over to him so I can give you a little bit of his information. Marc Gasol. And as you can see, pretty much 6 out of his last 8 games, he's been averaging about 48 plus in fantasy points. He's been trending upward with his fantasy points per game total. He has played 35 minutes plus. His usage rate is at about 22, 23% when he's very much involved in the game and he really wants to take some shots, he'll go up as much as 25, 26, 27% usage rate. He is going to get tons of shots, 13 or 14 shots pretty much on average per game. And for a big man, he shoots the three fairly well. He'll take 5 or 6 threes per game, as you can see here on the stat line. And he gets to the free throw line. He's a good free throw shooter. He is one of the best centers in the league. And I mean, there was a time that we were thinking, what has happened to Marc Gasol? Well, I guess now he's a little bit more happier with the coaching staff and how they're playing as a team. Last year they were losing a lot and he was just frustrated. He did not play well last year, had a lot of injuries, but he has bounced back this year. He is playing excellent basketball, and we all know he is a good rebounder and he is also a good defender, one of the best one-on-one centers as far as defensively in the league. So he brings rebounding, some assists. Turnover ratio over the last 2 games, very surprising. 9 turnovers over the course of the last 2 games. Definitely hurt us with fantasy points. Would have had a lot more from him, but he brings the defense. Steals and blocks are there. As you can see, pretty much 2 blocks on average over the course of the last 4 games, and at least 1 or 2 steals over the last of the 4 games as well in that same stretch. So he has been lights out. He's been fabulous. But on DK Price, definitely excellent play. Home and away splits, 50% field goal percentage, 41% from 3, 44 fantasy points per game. His last game against the Clippers, okay, as you can see there, he put up that 55 spot. That was earlier this year, 58% shooting in that game, 33% from 3. And he had 13 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 block, 27 points from the floor, as you can see that. And he put up 44, pretty much 55 fantasy points. So solid game for Marc Gasol. Definitely DraftKings, folks. Not here on Fanduel. I know I'm looking at him over Fanduel, but I'm telling you, he is the better play on DK. Now, here at center on Fanduel, I definitely like Nikola Jokic, all right? I think Jokic here is definitely in play for me at 9,400. You could go with Vucevic, who's going up against him, but for me, I think he is a better defender than Vucevic. That's for one. And it's just a matter of time before Mr. Jokic here gets his act together. I really do. 16.7 points, 9.7 rebounds, pretty much 10 rebounds again, 7.5 assists, 43 fantasy points. He's here at 9,400. You pretty much need 47 to meet value here. On DK's 9,200, you need 46 there. He's more than capable of doing it. Granted, he has not looked good. He has not had 46 or 48 at all here. But I like the fact that he bounced back with a solid game against Toronto here for 63 pretty much fantasy points. Let's go over to the cruncher. And what I like is the matchup. They're going up against Orlando, 28th. Vucevic is not a great defender. And the other thing is we know he's going to get his shots. His minutes are there. He's getting about maybe 20, 28, 29 minutes a game. Usage is there, 25 to 26%, pretty much on average, and he's going to get shots. I would say 13 or 14 shots per game on average. He's going to take some threes. Surprisingly, his threes are not going down this year. He is not that bad of a three-point shooter, but it is not showing this year, so I would say he's probably not as good at the moment. But his free throw shooting is pretty excellent, and what he brings to the table is the rebounding. He's so good with his eyes. He definitely knows how to pass the ball well. He gets his other players on his team involved, so he's a good assist guy for a big guy, just like Gasol is. And, you know, he has his tendency to have some turnovers, but he makes them up with some blocks and steals, which he's capable of doing. What I like the most out of this matchup is that he has had good success against them in 3 and 4 meetings, 40 pretty much or more. He's had a 59, pretty much a 60 spot here and a 55 spot here. So I kind of like that. And, of course, he already had that one game this year where he put up 40 fantasy points. And he put up these 40 fantasy points, and as you can see, he only shot 7 shots from the floor, was 2 of 7, only 15% usage. But this is what he can do to you. He had 10 rebounds, 11 assists. He did other things to get the team involved and to be able to help his ball club win games. He had 2 steals in that game, 6 points from the floor only, but he put up 40 fantasy points because of the assists and the total rebounds. Okay, so that's what he can bring to the table. So Mr. Jokic is in play. I think he'll have a really, really bounce back game this time around and be able to get more involved in his offense and put up some big numbers. Going up against Orlando, 28th, and they're on the front end of a back-to-back, all right? Orlando, 28th in defending centers, 22nd in fantasy points per game allowed to centers, allowing 31 fantasy points per game over the course of the last 6 games. They did give him the last game out, Whiteside 35, which was last night, which I expected Whiteside to put up more than 45. He let me down a little bit. He wasn't terrible at 35 because he was projected. He was at a price tag of about 42 that we needed. But 41 to Nurkic, 40 to McGee, 40, of course, to Mr. Jokic in his last time they faced him, and 53 to Embiid. And even Mitchell Robinson of the Knicks put up 36. So, again, a couple of guys have put up some decent numbers against these guys. I still think that Mr. Jokic is capable of getting 50 or better. So I'm going to have some exposure to Mr. Jokic. You could make a statement for Steven Adams against Brooklyn. Brooklyn has definitely had the issues against centers, so you can go that route if you wanted to. If you wanted to pay down a few thousand there, you can do that. Drummond is on another spot here. Milwaukee doesn't have a good, solid center, so I will probably sprinkle him in if I can in one or two lineups. I still like Jokic better in the matchup against Orlando because I think it'll be a little closer as far as him in battling with Vucevic. And then I also like the Julius Randle situation here. If Markieff is out, I'm definitely going to have swing over, and I'm going to pivot a little bit to Julius Randle on some of my lineups as well. So Julius Randle, for me, is also in play. All right, and that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope I help you out. I gave you a couple different options there. It might have been a little lengthy with the video. I know I've been giving you value plays and stud plays. I figured, let me just give you some guys that I'm really, really considering. And then, of course, there's always some things are going to change. By the end of the day, it may be totally different due to some news, somebody sitting out, or whatever the case may be. But that's pretty much where I'm at, man. I hope you guys liked the video. Please drop a like. Please share with others on the social media. Other than that, if you're new to the channel and you have not, this is your first time here. If you like what you're seeing and you want to get this information on a regular basis, the only thing you have to do to be a part of the DFS community is basically subscribe. So make sure you subscribe, put on that bell notification. This way you don't miss out on any of these NBA, and I do also NFL videos as well. You won't miss out on any of them when I post them up. Other than that, I wish you guys a lot of luck tonight, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.